In order for a nuclear bomb to work, normally it requires uranium, sometimes also plutonium, as the video said, but it uses different isotopes of uranium. So in this instance, I use 235 and only 235. So when those two combine together, like I said, they create a bigger isotope, which is helium, and with that, then they're fused together, heated up, and something explodes because it's unstable. Like I was talking about, hydrogen, or yeah, hydrogen bombs typically use fusion and fission together. So those hydrogen atoms, there's two isotopes of hydrogen that are used. It's deuterium and tritium, I believe. Those are put together, they combine, instead of splitting, they combine, make a bigger atom, and that bigger one is what is used with the heat and the fusion to be able to use the fusion and fission together. So as the uranium starts to undergo fission, so basically the neutrons in the uranium-235 or of that isotope is basically hitting the nucleus, and that nucleus is then splitting. Because it's hitting the nucleus and then splitting, all that energy is released from the nucleus. It causes this chain reaction, so then all the neutrons that are in there that are being released to each new atom that is being built ends up basically hitting each nucleus, hitting a nucleus, splitting it, hitting a nucleus, splitting it, hitting a nucleus, splitting it, and then we see this chain reaction. But we can't just also have a nuclear bomb with just uranium. So also it needs a critical mass, meaning there's a certain amount of matter that needs to be in place in that uranium for it to even be able to do that. For nuclear bombs, it's 4 to 5 times the critical masses, so 4 to 5 critical masses basically make up how much is needed as well. So with that, you have a critical mass that is 4 to 5, and then you have your isotope being at 80% concentration, just to make sure that it's as pure as it can be. And then it's also undergoing that fission reaction, but all of that can't also occur without heat. So once you have all of those chain reactions occurring, it's getting heated up, and with that, the mass, the fission or fusion, depending on what you're using, and then the heat also, and all of these chain reactions that happen again and again and again and again and again over time build up enough energy that create the nuclear bomb to be released. So the energy being released essentially creates the explosion, but to get the nuclear bomb effect, there are also other things that are compacted against and around the material of the uranium and things that are put in, so that way when it does actually hit and react and explode, when all of that heats up enough, it'll explode all together and make a big reaction with a lot of energy rather than just something small. So the way the bomb is designed basically is that there's a fuel compartment, there is the uranium-235, there's the barrels and all of that stuff, and all of the other material that goes around it. Each of these things have to be at different critical, or I guess subcritical masses, so that way all of it works together. So when there's a free neutron, like I talked about with the uranium, it hits the nucleus. The neutron hits the nucleus, splits, continue with that chain reaction. That fission creates the heat that I also was talking about. But these all have to be kept separate. So with the fuel as well, because it heats up and needs a way to be able to take flight and things like that. With the fuel, the problem is they cannot be together, so they're in separate compartments, so that way it does not explode too fast, because what can happen is while it's in flight, something happens, you have the extra neutrons hitting the fuel instead of anything else, and then you have this bigger explosion that explodes before it's supposed to. So you can't start the reaction too fast. So when all that is heated up, the fuel has it going, the fission is occurring, the heat is being released. There's also material in there that I was talking about called a tamper. With that material, that is going to get expanded and heated up with the heat that is occurring from that fission, and heat also expands molecules, so all that is stretching and it pushes back, and when that is pushed back, it's helping to release that bomb. Also, I'd like to point out that the nuclear fission bomb typically is a gun type. That is what I was talking about with the tamper, the fuel, and everything else. Like, there are separate compartments for everything, so that way it all doesn't come together and explode too fast. So one thing after another will trigger something. So the fission will trigger the heat will trigger the tamper, and so on and so on and so on. As in the hydrogen bomb, it's just kind of the atoms connecting together and not making that bigger explosion instead of just the two hydrogen atoms just in the helium being unstable.